Hello, GM. Here for the Furucombo Layer 2 Strategies workshop. So a little light today, probably from market conditions, but that's okay. We'll go through strategies here and you guys enjoy this workshop. So just wanted to review some things we talked about from a previous workshop is, what are the risks from yield? So you should always be aware of the smart contract risk, token risk, and impermanent loss. And these are things that you're just gonna have to be aware of when you're using. So impermanent loss occurs when the price of your tokens in the liquidity pool diverge up and down away from the price when you deposit it. Token risk is any of the tokens that you would be farming within that pool that you'd have to be aware of. So if some of the high yield is coming from UST, then there's a high token risk when using that. That's probably why the farming rate or return on investment is so high for that pool. So you definitely have to be aware of that. And then smart contract risk is just using that particular farming pool. Has the contract been audited? Is it a blue chip protocol? So typically, if it's higher risk, then again you're going to have a higher yield there. So these are three really important things to remember. Impermanent loss is going to happen no matter which pool you choose. There are some that run different setups with impermanent loss, such as Uniswap V3, but most of the farming pools are running on a Uniswap V2 setup. And then, of course, if there's no divergence in asset prices, then you're not going to have this impermanent loss. So if you're in a stablecoin pool or something like Curve, you're a lot safer from this. Another important thing to remember is some websites list APY versus APR, so just be aware of if it's APY, it's generally because it's compounding. So things like Beefy are probably going to show you the APY and appear that it has a higher return on investment than other websites. So just be aware that some may be calculating it differently. And then, of course, when you're investing in yield farms, you don't want to overextend yourself into maybe high risk farms. You want to always keep a certain amount in stable coins, in blue chip and low cap. So, this might be adjusted now since the start of the bear market, but you probably want to do about 50% stable coins, maybe 35% blue chip, and 15% or 10% low cap. So just be aware of what your risk tolerance is, and don't invest more than you're willing to lose. So let's get into the strategies then. So I focused today mostly on Optimism and Arbitrum. There are other layer 2s that you can invest in, such as Metis, but this will be the focus of this workshop is the two. So I looked at the top TVL on both of those chains, and those will mostly be what we're looking into. So Aave, Velodrome, Curve, Uniswap, and Beefy on Optimism. And then GMX, Curve, Sushi, Uniswap V3, Aave V3, and Beefy on Arbitrum. So there's a few different options. You have, for example, derivatives, DEX, staking. So DEX is your swaps, and then staking is where you're going to get your yield from. You have Aave, which is going to be your lending, and then you have your yield aggregators. So that's going to be, you put your funds in the yield aggregator, and that will auto compound your staking, so you don't have to worry about it. So first off, if you want to see, for example, where you can put your funds on each of those chains, you can, for example, go to DeFi Llama, and you can look up Optimism. And here you can see where the sort of by total TVL or total value locked, and see kind of where people are placing their funds. So for example, on Optimism, we have Aave at the top, we got Synthetic second, Velodrome third, and you can kind of see what the category is. So Aave is going to be your lending, Velodrome is going to be your DEX, for example. So this is a good way to find places that people are putting their money and kind of start looking for yield that way. If we go over to Arbitrum, we can see the top is GMX, and that's a derivatives platform. It's also got swapping as well, which we'll go over. And then Stargate is a bridge. So you can also stake your funds onto these cross-chain bridges to get yield. That's one thing I didn't look at, but we'll measure up kind of how that yield looks in the next page here. And they also got Dex, or sorry, Curve as a Dex, and then Uniswap. So we can also go over to the yield rankings here, which is another page. And this I have sorted on Arbitrum and Optimism. You can do that just by going to filter by chain here and choosing those two chains. Again, there's many others to choose from, but again, we're just focused on these two. So we can look here and we can look under APY and we can see, okay, well, GLP, GMX, these are giving fairly high yield. But again, you want to be aware of what is the risk of staking a GMX token. And then if we go sort this. Okay, so there's you know, you could sort it by whichever one you want. So right now it's sorted by TVL, which is kind of going to be your safest bet. That's where most people are sticking their funds. So if we look, USDC, for example, on Optimism, giving a pretty low APY, so we might want to look for something better there. I think Aave might have had Optimism rewards, but which has now expired. And same with Curve. So it brought in a lot of liquidity, but it's looking like that liquidity is going to start drying up because the rewards are getting lower. So we'll look into that as we go to each of the platforms. So the first one is Aave V3. So I think most people are familiar with Aave, but if you're not, it's a lending protocol and allows you to borrow from your deposits. So you can provide a deposit, say of 1,000 USDC, and you can borrow, say, $700 in ETH from Aave. So it can provide you some level of leverage. For example, you could deposit 1,000 ETH and you could borrow 700 ETH. So now your position's leveraged 1.7. So it's extremely safe. It's been around since the start of DeFi, and it's a blue chip protocol. So on Arbitrum, it's got about 35 million in liquidity, and on Optimism, it's about 246 million. So the high liquidity again on Optimism was because of the incentivized rewards. And Arbitrum right now doesn't have a token, so people might be staking there either to utilize some of the rewards from volume, or because they think there's going to be an airdrop. So there's a couple options there. And then these transactions using Aave can be completed on Furucombo. So you can use Furucombo to manage your positions, and uniquely you can use Furucombo's flash loans to perform special transactions such as self-liquidate, collateral swap, or debt swap. We'll just hop over to the Aave site here and just check some of the yield returns. So this is on Optimism. The highest right now looks like USDT. So that would be our best bet for making a deposit. USDC and DAI are looking like the lowest, so 0.04%, which is quite low return. At that being said, you're going to get a good rate on borrowing currently with the variable rate. So because there's a lot of liquidity locked up in these tokens, you're going to get a chance to borrow these assets at a cheaper price. So if you do go with the variable, you can get 0.44% on USDC, which you can use to purchase something else. So it's pretty good for borrowing. You could even do stuff like borrow on Optimism and make a deposit on Arbitrum, for example. So if we go over to Arbitrum, then we can see that the rates are a little bit higher for some of these tokens. 0.36 for USDC. Again, stablecoin rates, because it's not incentivized currently, is a little bit low. So maybe there's better options for staking your stablecoin. But the nice thing here is it allows you to borrow. So you could stake here to get that lower percentage return and maybe just borrow some of the same assets that you staked, or leverage yourself if you want to do that, and use those funds elsewhere. So it gives you that option. Next on Optimism is Velodrome. So this was the third highest liquidity protocol, and it's based on the Solidly fork from Andre's project on Phantom. So the AMM was audited, and the code base is open sourced, but it hasn't been audited since the fork. So this one is a little bit higher risk than using something like Aave. So be aware of that when you make your deposit into this protocol. That they have great yield farms, but there could be that smart contract risk that we talked about. So I'll just pop over here to the Velodrome site. And if we go under pools here, we're going to see all the available pools on Optimism's Velodrome. So we have a stable pool, for example, that's giving 7.24%. That's with USDC SUSD. So this would be a good one to get into when compared to Aave's return on investment from stable farms. And then we have something like ETH, staked ETH, which is giving 13.54%. So that one's a pretty high return as well for yield farming currently. And of course, these rates are subject to change based on the volatility in the market, volume, things like that. So currently, this is a uniquely good one to get into. Seems like the APRs are high, so I'm not sure what their reward token is here, but you can find out more information by checking out their docs here, or learning more by coming to the website. Next on our list, we have Curve. So I think most people are aware of what Curve is, but if you're not, it's a stablecoin swapper. So you can also stake your stablecoins here and get some yield. So extremely safe, like Aave. They've also been around since the start, and it's the third highest liquidity on Arbitrum at 70 million. And fourth highest liquidity on Optimism at 60 million. So if we hop over to Optimism here, there's a few options. So the 3 pool is giving 1.11% return. And then there are some incentivized farms on Curve still. So you can get, for example, here's the breakdown. You can get 1% return from the staked ETH pool, but you're also getting 15.15% return from the OP token. So something you'd need to be aware here is kind of when do these rewards stop, because they're only going to be here for, say, a month to 3 months, 6 months, something like that. So they may choose to continue these rewards, but just be aware that these rates can also change based on the Optimism tokens that they're providing for these pools. But right now, when comparing, this would be the best stablecoin pool here, which is going to give you about 5% return on investment, which is a little less than when we go back to Velodrome here. So 5% versus 7%, you may say, well, I'm not going to risk putting my tokens into Velodrome when there's a higher smart contract risk. I feel safer in the Curve pool, so you can definitely do that here. And it looks like the staked ETH return on investment is actually higher than the Velodrome one. So this would be the pool to go into for safety as well. If we pop over to Arbitrum here, we can see that there's a few more options when compared to Optimism. Some decent return on investments here for the stablecoin pools. Again, there is no Arbitrum token yet, so people, you could potentially stake here and get some airdrop from Arbitrum in the future, but that's not really confirmed yet, so you'd just be staking here for the yield. So Arbitrum showing decent yield on some of the stablecoin pools. And then there is incentivized rewards here, some from Curve on the USDC So this one's not too bad at 15%, the Try Crypto. So if this is one that you're interested in too, you could also use DeFi Llama to check the Try Cryptos across all of the blockchains to see the best option. Try Crypto isn't available on Optimism, so for your layer 2 strategies, this would be the one to look at. All right, next is Uniswap V3. So this is the leading decentralized exchange across a lot of blockchains currently, and uses a new method of liquidity based on ranges. So if you're looking to make a deposit into Uniswap V3, it kind of leverages the range of liquidity to provide higher rewards within that range. So based on volume. So if you're outside of that range, though, you don't earn any trading fees, and your position could be closed, so you'll be left with 100% of one of the assets. So if you are planning on making a deposit into Uniswap V3, you're going to require active management or automation, like using Gelato's automation system, Brachus. So that's something that's going to constantly manage your position to ensure that you're not, you're always within the bounds of the higher and lower threshold. So this is the Uniswap site here. We're connected on Arbitrum, Optimism now. So if you wanted to provide, so you could just go here on the swap interface and make some choices, or you could go to pool here and you can open a new position. So you'll have to choose your 2 tokens. And then, so let's do DAI USDC, and we want to choose an option here. So this would be the best for stable pairs. So you can kind of read through these choices here and then decide kind of how you're going to set up your bands, your price range, to kind of determine how much leverage you're going to get. What I would do if you haven't used Uniswap V3 is come over here to how to provide liquidity on Uniswap V3 and briefly read through everything here. It does get a little confusing as to how you should set up your position. And then they do have these 2 calculator websites here, which you can see provide you a lot of information and are also important to understand before you make a deposit into Swap V3, because there's a lot of ways that you can leverage yourself to generate extra funds, but it's also much more confusing. So I would recommend this method only if you're an active manager and you have a good understanding of how to use Uniswap V3. So I'm not going to go into great detail on that today, but that could be something for a future workshop. And then the next one would be Beefy Finance. So this one is unique because it compounds the interest or compounds the rewards on your yield farms. So when using Beefy, your funds aren't locked, and then it also has a rating system to decide which options are best for you. It has about 43 million in liquidity on Optimism and 25 million liquidity on Arbitrum. So if we go over here to Beefy on Optimism, we can see, okay, well, they have the curve pool here, and it's auto compounding to give you 8.62% APY. So this one is also getting the Beefy boost, which I imagine is providing some Beefy tokens as well. And it provides a safety factor of 9.5. So there's a good safety factor here when using that one. And then this is kind of just going down the list here. So you can see the staked ETH LP from Velodrome is about 7% on Beefy. So if we go over here, so 6.79 on Velodrome. So you're getting a slightly increased yield of 0.23% higher when using finance because of the auto compounding rate. So they do take a small fee from using their vaults. But yeah, if you don't want to compound your rewards manually, or you want to take advantage of that compounding effect from doing it daily, Beefy is something that can be useful to you. And then the final platform I'm talking about today is GMX. So this is a derivatives platform on Arbitrum, and it also supports low swap fees and zero price impact trades. And liquidity providers can earn fees from market making, swaps, and leverage trading. So it's the highest TVL currently on Arbitrum at 394 million. So quite substantial. They've also do quite a bit of volume, which returns a lot to the GMX token. So it's unique in that sense. They're actually getting a lot of use because of their leverage trading. So it's audited by ABDK Consulting. I've never heard of them, so there's medium to high risk from using this platform, but they do have an active bug bounty with MunFi. So just be aware of if you are going to provide liquidity here, it's medium to high risk. And then they offer ETH USD, BT USD, or BTC USD, Link USD, and Uni USD pairings. And then the stablecoins offered are between 4 USDT, Frax, DAI, and USDT. ABDK is legit. Okay, well, that's good. So medium risk will lower it too, but just be aware, of course, of the smart contract risk. And then if we pop over here to the interface, this is where you could do a swap, for instance, and then you can choose a long and short position. So this is unique on Arbitrum. I'm not sure if there's any derivatives platform currently on Optimism, but this is what's gaining a lot of traction right now. So you can provide leverage, open a derivatives position of up to 30.5% leverage, or 30.5x leverage, rather. So if you want to short the market, you can do so via GMX here. So based on the chart here, you might want to be looking into a long position, but that's kind of up to you. You can do that here. And then you can also provide some liquidity to get return on investment from the active leverage trading. So that would be kind of your best option on Arbitrum right now, is that. But again, you can kind of go over here to either Optimism or Arbitrum on DeFi Llama, check out where people are providing their liquidity, and you can also check out the yield rankings either by, I would go by TVL. You can go by return on investment, but you're going to get a lot of lower cap tokens that might not have the best token safety or price stability. And then at the same time, you're going to get a lot of highly leveraged positions. For example, pools with Uniswap that have tight ranges that are earning pretty good APYs, but the price range is very tight. So just things to remember there when sorting this. TVL is kind of going to give you the best angle on things. And that's GMX there, and that is the Layer 2 workshop. So everyone, the massive audience in attendance here, will receive the OAT for the workshop. So this is going to be a really rare one. So thanks everyone for attending, and stay safe in the market today. Cheers.